Deputy, you have 5 minutes.
5 minutes, well, Margaret. I suppose last Friday, I think it was last Friday, there was a photograph of a young family on the front page of many papers, and it told a story that this young woman and her family had basically slept in the car. There was a lot of media interest around it. The same day, I had a different family from Tala in with me. The young woman was 5 months pregnant. She had a 3-year-old child, and her and her partner had slept in the car that night. So the story that was running on the papers was, what I'm basically saying is, wasn't unusual. Last night I got a phone call from a niece of mine from Clondalkin, and again there was a young woman and her family being put out of their home by the landlord, and she was presenting today to South Dublin County Council. Last Friday, when I tried to get some accommodation for this other woman who was pregnant, South Dublin County Council basically said that they'd no emergency accommodation. I was given a phone number of the number in the Dublin Corporation area in the city here, and when I tried to get on the phone, there was a waiting list of 25 people before me. Eventually got through. And I was told that basically, there was a difficulty. They didn't have anything. They were very annoyed that South Dublin had basically referred to their office, and there was all sorts of, you could feel the tension, coming down the line in relation to the staff that were trying to deal with the problem. Their solution was that the family would split up. They'd nowhere basically for the young child. There was no accommodation. At the moment, there's a number of families at the moment living in hotel accommodation in the South Dublin County Council area. And I suppose when some people hear, they're living in a hotel, it's basically a one room, and they don't have any real facilities for, there's no facilities for children. They're locked into one room. They have no facilities for cleaning, for washing, for washing your clothes, laundrette and so on. So there's quite an added expense. There's also a difficulty in that the payments that if they were on payments, there's a difficulty there, and you have to get that sorted out with the local authority. The woman tonight that I was talking to, that was again presented homeless, a neighbour had actually taken her in, because again there was no accommodation. And at 5 o'clock then they got a phone call to say that there was bed and breakfast accommodation in town. Why am I telling that story? Well, I suppose there's a huge amount of families out there that are in those conditions. I suppose there's about 2 families a week presenting at my office in circumstances like that, and what's happening is that landlords are basically saying that they want to up the rent, that the rent supplement is no longer. So eventually many of those families are being put out of their home. And the difficulty is, Minister, and I've said this to you before in a debate a couple of weeks ago, I said to you that in the Dublin South West area, there is no accommodation there you can actually get to rent. And that's the difficulty. And there's other members in the House here, and they can probably talk about the story in their constituency as well. So there's what I would describe as a crisis. Minister, you might describe it as something else, but I think we'd all agree that there's a problem there and it needs to be fixed. You could conceivably argue that 6 months ago that many of the local authorities were coping with the emergency accommodation, the housing and so on. But 6 months down the road, I'm saying now to you that they're not coping, they're not managing, they're not able to cope with the amount of people there. I think it's going to get worse, not better. And I don't see any emergency measures or any new approaches being taken to try and deal with the problem. And that's my biggest worry. I think there's general consensus that there's a crisis out there. And I suppose what we want to hear coming from tonight's debate is that there's some reasoned debate that there's alternatives there. Now, we would argue that, I listened to the proposal in relation to the turnover of housing stock. Now, I don't think there's the same problem, but there is houses that are boarded up in my constituency. But I don't know if the proposal that's been put forward by Deputy Kelleher is a fair proposal, particularly for those families who aren't in the situation that have the resources to go down the road that he's suggesting, or they don't have the ability or the skills to do up those houses. So that would discriminate, I think, in many of those people who in some cases are 8 or 9 years down the road. But let's hear ideas here tonight, and Minister, please come back to this House with some radical new proposals. We put suggestions forward in our own proposal here tonight, but there is ways to fix this, and there is ways to get us out of this mess.
Deputy, could I ask you to move the adjournment of the...
Move the adjournment.
Come on,